The Student Freedom Agreement, Payment Scenarios. In this video, we go into detail about the termination amount and walk through some case scenarios of what payments could look like with a Student Freedom Agreement based on different income schedules. A quick reminder that under a Student Freedom Agreement, you agree to pay 2.5% of your income for every $10,000 received. You'll make these income contingent payments on a monthly basis for either 20 years or until you reduce the termination amount to zero. For additional information on the basics of a Student Freedom Agreement, please watch video 1 in this series. So what do we mean when we say the termination amount? Put simply, the termination amount is the dollar amount that you can pay at any given time if you want to have no further payment obligation. Student Freedom Initiative uses the termination amount to impose a limit on the total payments you will make under a Student Freedom Agreement. Initially, the termination amount starts at the funding amount received and grows at a certain rate each year. As you make payments, the termination amount is reduced by the amount of your payments. At the same time, it grows at the growth rate specified in your agreement and is fixed for the life of the contract. For the 2021-2022 academic year, the growth rate was set at 4.3%. The total amount of money you could possibly pay under the Student Freedom Agreement is capped in two ways. First, you will never pay more than your actual funding amount multiplied by 1.6. For example, if you receive $10,000 in funding from an SFA, you will never pay more than $16,000 to complete your obligation. Second, the cost of your agreement expressed as an annual rate, or APR, will never exceed the yearly annual growth rate. For example, if the growth rate is 4.3%, your APR will never exceed 4.3%. You can exit the agreement, meaning that your payment term ends either after 20 years or by paying the termination amount. Let's take a look at a few case scenarios. This example describes a student who received a Student Freedom Agreement in 2021 and makes a steady, moderately high income after college. Amanda received $10,000 from a Student Freedom Agreement, so she owes 2.5% of her income each year. Amanda has a steady annual income of $50,000. On top of her other loans, she makes payments of $104 each month to Student Freedom Initiative, or about $1,250 each year. At this rate, after about 10.5 years, she has made payments totaling $12,991 and has reduced her termination amount to $0. She has now completed her payment obligation. Let's take a look at an example of a student who received a Student Freedom Agreement in 2021, enrolls in a graduate or professional degree program, and goes on to make a high income. In this example, Michelle received $10,000 too, so she also owes 2.5% of her yearly income. Right after graduating with her bachelor's degree, Michelle enrolls in medical school. This means that for the 4 years Michelle is in med school and is not making any income, she is earning less than the threshold amount and does not have to make any payments to Student Freedom Initiative. Stipends provided in graduate school do not count as income under a Student Freedom Agreement. Upon graduation from med school, she has completed 4 years of her payment obligation. While in residency, Michelle earns $60,000 and so makes payments of $125 each month in addition to payments on other loans. After 3 years in residency, she earns a yearly income of about $110,000 as a doctor, so she begins making larger payments of $229 each month. In this situation, where she started out making nothing in grad school and quickly went from low to moderate to high income, Michelle went from making no payments to higher income contingent payments on her Student Freedom Agreement. In this case, it takes Michelle about 6.5 years of payments to reduce the termination amount to $0. In total, she ends up paying $14,569. Here's one last example. In this case, Jalen received a Student Freedom Agreement in 2021 and makes a relatively low and fluctuating income. He received $10,000 and owes 2.5% of his income, just like Amanda and Michelle. Jalen gets a relatively low-paying job right out of college and makes $25,000 per year. Because this is below the threshold income level of close to $30,000 per year, he does not owe any money towards his Student Freedom Agreement during those years. After 2 years, Jalen gets a raise and starts making $34,000 per year, so he starts making payments on the Student Freedom Agreement. After 4 years, Jalen decides to leave the workforce and raise a family. Even though Jalen's household has an income above $30,000, Jalen's personal income is $0, so he does not owe any money on the Student Freedom Agreement. After 5 years, Jalen rejoins the workforce and makes between $40,000 and $49,000 a year. Throughout this time, Jalen does not miss any payments. He made payments any year that his annual income was over the threshold amount. In this scenario, Jalen makes 156 payments over the 20 payment years. In total, Jalen pays $13,354. So what will a Student Freedom Agreement look like for you? Every student's future financial situation is unique, and so their Student Freedom Agreement will be unique too. Prior to deciding, you can use Student Freedom Initiative's cost calculator to see an estimate of how much you might pay based on how much funding you receive and how much you expect to earn after college. This is only an estimate, since the exact terms of the agreement adjust to what your income schedule ends up being in the future. A Student Freedom Agreement might be a good option for you, or it might not be right for you. For more information on Student Freedom Agreements, check out the Student Freedom Initiative website or talk to a financial aid counselor at your college or university.